The church doors are wide open, and the music is playing loudly. The guests are rising from their seats, turning their heads to see the bride. But as I stand at the back, ready to make my entrance, I see something that makes my blood run cold. My mother-in-law, Victoria Langley, is already walking down the aisle. She isn't wearing a simple dress. She is wearing a full, white bridal gown. A long train drags behind her like she owns the entire ceremony. My heart hammers against my ribs. This has to be a dream. It has to be a mistake. Before I can even move or react, she reaches the front and does something unthinkable. She sits down right in my reserved bride seat. The crowd gasps in a single, unified breath. My bouquet shakes in my hand as I freeze at the altar, watching her adjust her skirt. She looks up and catches my eye, smiling like she belongs exactly where she is sitting. Then, she leans over and whispers loud enough for the front row to hear, "Relax, sweetheart. I've always been the real lady of this family." My heart drops into my stomach. I realized right then that this wedding just turned into a battlefield. Caleb hasn't said a word yet. Caleb stands frozen at the altar. His eyes are flickering back and forth between me and his mother. He looks like a deer caught in headlights, unable to move or even breathe properly. Victoria doesn't seem bothered by the tension at all. In fact, she seems to be enjoying it. She reaches up and adjusts her veil, smoothing the lace over her shoulders as if she is the one waiting for the priest to start the vows. The guests are starting to whisper now. The sound is like a swarm of bees filling the church. My chest tightens until it feels like I am being crushed. I am waiting for Caleb to step forward. I am waiting for him to tell her to move, to tell her that this is wrong. But he stays rooted to the spot. My hands are trembling so hard that I almost drop my flowers. Then, he leans toward me and says quietly, "Let's just keep the peace today, Isabella." That sentence breaks something deep inside me. It isn't just a request, it is a betrayal. He is choosing her comfort over my dignity. I step back from the altar, feeling completely humiliated in front of everyone I know. Just as I feel like I might faint from the shame, the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church open again. The sound echoes through the silent room. In walks Richard Langley, my father-in-law. He doesn't look shocked like the rest of the guests. He doesn't look angry or confused. He looks prepared. He is walking with a purpose that makes people stop whispering. In his right hand, he carries a thick, black legal folder. He doesn't go to sit with Victoria at the front. Instead, he scans the room once, his eyes landing on me for a brief second with an unreadable expression. Then, he turns and sits quietly in the very back row. He crosses his legs and places the folder firmly on his lap. He looks like a man who is waiting for a specific moment to arrive. He is like a hunter watching his prey from a distance. Victoria notices him from her stolen seat. I see her shoulders stiffen under the white lace. Her triumphant smile fades for the first time since she walked down the aisle. She knows Richard, and she knows that folder means trouble is coming. The officiant is visibly shaking. He looks at me, then at Victoria, then at Caleb. He is clearly waiting for someone to fix this situation, but no one does. He nervously clears his throat and continues with the ceremony. It feels like a scripted nightmare. Victoria remains seated in the bride's chair, acting as if she is the guest of honor and the bride all at once. The guests are looking at each other, confused and uncomfortable. Some are checking their phones, while others are staring at the back of Victoria's head. Caleb keeps glancing at his mother instead of looking at me. He won't even meet my eyes. Every time I try to catch his gaze, he looks away. I realize something devastating in that moment: no one is going to correct this. Not the priest, not the best man, and certainly not my future husband. I feel like a ghost at my own wedding. I look back at the last row. Richard is still sitting there, as still as a statue. He slowly opens his black folder. He begins to read through the papers inside, but he doesn't speak yet. He is just waiting for the right time. We move into the vows, but the atmosphere is heavy and wrong. Suddenly, without warning, Victoria stands up. She doesn't just stand, she marches over to Caleb. She reaches out and begins to fix his tie, smoothing the silk with her hands as if I wasn't even standing there. She leans in close and whispers something directly into his ear. I can't hear what she says, but I see Caleb's reaction. He nods slightly, his face pale. My stomach drops. It feels like there is a secret language between them that I will never understand. It feels like I'm not just marrying a man, I'm marrying into a system that was built to keep me out. I look out into the audience and see a guest in the third row holding up their phone. They are recording everything. I can see the little red light blinking. This humiliation isn't just happening here, it's being captured for the whole world to see. I want to run away, but my feet feel like they are made of lead. I am trapped in a ceremony that has been hijacked by a woman in a white dress. The ceremony somehow finishes, and we move to the reception hall. I thought maybe the nightmare would end there, but it only gets worse. At the reception, before anyone else can speak, Victoria grabs the microphone from the DJ. She stands in the center of the dance floor, the lights catching the sequins on her white gown. She raises her champagne glass high. To my son's real partner in life, she says, her voice booming through the speakers. She pauses for dramatic effect, then adds, me. A few people let out a nervous laugh, but most of the guests are just confused. The laughter ripples through the room, making my face burn with a heat I can't describe. I look at Caleb, hoping he will finally stand up and take the microphone away. I am begging him with my eyes to say something, to defend me, to tell her she has gone too far. But he just stands there with his head down. He doesn't stop her. He doesn't even look angry. He looks defeated. That is when I see movement from the corner of my eye. Richard is slowly standing up from his table. Richard doesn't rush. He walks with a calm, steady pace toward the front of the room. He reaches out and takes the microphone from Victoria's hand. He doesn't ask for it, he simply takes it. The room quiets down instantly. You could hear a pin drop on the carpeted floor. Victoria stiffens, her hand still frozen in the air where the microphone used to be. She tries to keep her smile on, but it looks like a mask that is starting to crack. Richard doesn't look at her. He looks out at the guests, then at Caleb, and finally at me. He is still holding that black legal folder tucked under his arm. I didn't come here today for speeches, he says. His voice is deep and carries a weight that silences the remaining whispers in the back of the hall. I didn't come here to celebrate a union based on lies and manipulation. I came here for documentation. He lifts the folder and taps it with his finger. The sound of the plastic hitting the paper is sharp. Everyone in the room realizes at the same time that this is no longer a happy family moment. Richard clears his throat and opens the folder. He pulls out a set of papers that look very official. A prenuptial condition was signed before this marriage, he begins to read. His voice is steady, like a judge delivering a sentence. This condition required full disclosure of any financial or emotional interference by family members. A loud murmur breaks out among the guests. People are leaning in, trying to hear every word. Victoria tries to laugh nervously, swaying a little in her white dress. Oh, Richard, don't be so dramatic, she says, trying to reach for the microphone again. This is a wedding, not a courtroom. But Richard doesn't smile back at her. He steps away from her reach, his eyes cold and focused. The condition was clear, he repeats. Any interference would lead to an immediate review of the family estate and the marriage's legal standing. He looks directly at Victoria, who has gone very still. The air in the room feels like it is vibrating with tension. He says, and that condition has been violated in the most disrespectful way possible. The room turns into a sea of noise. People are whispering to their neighbors, pointing at Victoria, and shaking their heads. The shift in energy is massive. Victoria realizes she is losing the room. She tries to regain control, stepping toward Richard with her chin held high. This is ridiculous. You are ruining our son's big day with these games, she shouts. Her voice is shrill now, losing its polished edge. But Richard doesn't flinch. He calmly continues flipping through the pages in his folder, ignoring her outbursts. He is looking for something specific. Caleb looks confused for the first time today. He looks like he is finally waking up from a long sleep. He looks at the papers in his father's hand and then at his mother's white dress. I just stand there, shaking. My hands are tucked into the folds of my own dress so no one can see how much I am trembling. I feel like the floor might open up and swallow me whole. Then, Richard leans back into the microphone. He calls my name clearly. Isabella Vance, he says. My heart stops. I look up at Richard, my breath catching in my throat. He looks at me with a strange kind of pity. Isabella Vance has been financially and emotionally undermined since the very day of her engagement, he announces to the entire room. My heart stops. I didn't think anyone knew the truth. I didn't think anyone saw the way Victoria had been chipping away at my confidence for months. Suddenly, the large projector screens on the walls of the reception hall flicker to life. I thought they were for a slideshow of our childhood photos. Instead, evidence slides begin to appear. There are screenshots of text messages Victoria sent me, telling me I wasn't good enough for her son. There are emails showing how she tried to cancel my floral arrangements behind my back. There are recordings of conversations where she mocked my family. Victoria's smile disappears completely. She looks at the screens in horror, her face turning a pale, ghostly white. The guests begin looking at her differently. They aren't seeing a loving mother anymore. They are seeing a woman who spent months trying to destroy a young woman's happiness. The silence that follows the display is deafening. Victoria looks around the room, realizing that every single person has seen her true colors. She leans in toward Richard and whispers, "You're humiliating me in front of everyone. How could you do this to your own wife?" Her voice is trembling with rage and shame. Richard doesn't even whisper back. He speaks right into the microphone so everyone can hear his reply. "No, Victoria. You did that to yourself the moment you put on that dress and sat in that chair." The room remains silent, but the weight of his words hangs in the air. People are staring at Victoria's white gown as if it is a crime scene. I see Caleb's brother, who is acting as the best man, step down from the altar area. He had been standing by Caleb the whole time, but now he is moving. He walks slowly, his eyes fixed on the floor. I expect him to come to me or to his mother. Instead, he walks straight toward his father. He stands next to Richard, showing exactly whose side he is on. Caleb finally speaks. His voice is cracked and small, like a child who has just realized they are lost. "What is going on?" he asks. He looks at the screens, then at the legal folder, then at me. Richard doesn't answer him with words. He simply reaches into the folder, pulls out a specific document, and hands it to his son. Caleb takes it with shaking hands. I watch his face as he reads. I see his eyes widen, then narrow, and then fill with a deep, dark sadness. His face changes completely. The confusion is replaced by a look of total shock. Victoria realizes she has to do something. She rushes forward, her white train tripping her up as she tries to reach Caleb. "Don't listen to him, honey. It's all lies," she cries out. But before she can reach him, 2 security guards step in subtly. They don't grab her, but they stand in her way, blocking her path to her son. She stops, her chest heaving. Caleb looks up from the paper and turns his head toward me. He looks at me for a long time, but he says nothing yet. I am still standing in my wedding dress, but the fabric feels heavy and cold. I feel like I don't belong in it anymore. This dress was supposed to represent a new beginning, a life of love and partnership. Now, It just feels like a costume in a play that has gone horribly wrong. The guests are whispering my name. I can hear Isabella being tossed around the room like a piece of gossip. Some people look sorry for me, while others look like they are enjoying the drama. I don't move. I can't move. I feel like if I take one step, I will shatter into a million pieces. The lights of the reception hall are too bright, and the smell of the expensive lilies is making me nauseous. Richard looks at the room and then at the priest who followed us to the reception. He takes a deep breath and speaks one more time. "We are not finishing this wedding today," he says firmly. The words echo through the hall. The wedding is over, but the fallout is just beginning. Richard isn't finished explaining the depth of the betrayal. He turns to the crowd, still holding the microphone. He explains that Victoria has been controlling Caleb's finances, making every major decision behind the scenes, and sabotaging every relationship he ever had. She had set up secret accounts and moved money to ensure Caleb stayed dependent on her. She had even told Caleb lies about my past to try and drive a wedge between us. Richard reveals that Caleb didn't know the full extent of his mother's meddling. He knew she was difficult, but he didn't know she was a criminal. Caleb is staring at the documents in his hand, his mouth hanging open. He looks like his entire world has just been pulled out from under him. He looks at his mother, and for the first time, I see genuine fear in his eyes. He is seeing the monster she really is. Victoria realizes her secrets are all out. She screams for the first time, a high-pitched, desperate sound that makes everyone flinch. The control she spent years building is crumbling in seconds. The scream seems to break the spell of the room. Victoria tries to bolt for the exit, her white dress flapping around her legs. She looks like a ghost trying to escape the light of day. But the security guards are still there. They don't let her pass. They aren't aggressive, but they are firm, standing like stone walls in front of the doors. She spins around, looking for an ally, but everyone is looking away from her. She looks at Caleb, her eyes wide and pleading. "I did everything for you, Caleb. I did it all to protect you," she screams, her voice cracking. Caleb doesn't answer. He doesn't even look at her anymore. He is looking at the floor, the legal papers clutched so tightly in his hand that they are starting to tear. He is trembling from head to toe. The woman who raised him, the woman he trusted above everyone else, has been exposed as his greatest enemy. He turns his body back toward me, moving like he is walking through water. The silence in the room is heavy with the sound of Victoria's ragged breathing. Caleb walks toward me slowly. Every step he takes seems to take an enormous amount of effort. He stops a few feet away, his face wet with tears. He looks older than he did an hour ago. "I didn't know, Isabella," he says softly. "I knew she was overbearing, but I didn't know she went this far. I didn't know about the money or the texts. I swear to you, I didn't know." His voice is full of pain, but I don't respond. I can't. I just look at him. I see the man I thought I knew, and I see the man who told me to keep the peace while his mother sat in my chair wearing my color. I see a man who was too weak to protect me when it mattered most. Whether he knew the full extent or not doesn't change the fact that I was alone at the altar. Silence feels safer than hope right now. If I hope, I might get hurt again. Richard walks over to us and hands me a final document. It is separate from the others, tucked into a side pocket of the folder. I took the document from Richard. My fingers are cold as I scan the lines of text. This document is different. It is a legal protection agreement. It explains that because of the proven financial and emotional interference, I am granted full legal protection from any financial entanglement in this marriage. It means that if I choose to leave right now, Victoria can't touch my assets, and she can't use the Vance name to hurt me. It gives me a clean break. Or, it gives me a way to continue with a safety net. The choice is entirely mine. I look up and realize that the entire room is watching me. The guests, the catering staff, the photographers, everyone is waiting to see what the bride will do. I look at Caleb, who is waiting for an answer. I look at Richard, who is nodding slowly, giving me the permission I never thought I needed. I haven't decided yet. The power has shifted from Victoria to me, and the weight of that power is overwhelming. I feel like I am standing on the edge of a very high cliff. In the background, Victoria is finally being escorted out of the main hall. The guards lead her toward a side room so the guests don't have to watch her breakdown anymore. As she passes the threshold, she lets out one last scream. She doesn't belong in this family. She's a nobody. She's nothing. Her voice echoes through the vents, but no one responds. Not a single person defends her. Her power is completely gone. She is just a woman in a ruined white dress, crying in a side room while her life falls apart. The guests start to move again, but it's not to dance. They are gathering their things. The party is over. The air of celebration has been replaced by a somber, clinical feeling. Caleb watches the door to the side room close. He looks at me, then at the door, and then back at me. He seems to be weighing his loyalty. Without a word to anyone, he turns and enters the side room alone. He needs to face the woman who tried to own him. Inside the hall, it's just me, Richard, and a few lingering guests. Richard walks over to the door where Caleb went. He doesn't go in, but he stands near it. He looks at me and then speaks loud enough for Caleb to hear through the wood if he's listening. "You are about to inherit a cycle, not a marriage," he says. His voice isn't angry, it's just tired. He has spent years watching this cycle, and he finally broke it. I realized that Richard wasn't just saving me, he was saving his son. He was saving the family name from becoming a permanent cage. Caleb goes silent on the other side of the door. I can imagine him standing there, looking at his mother, realizing that every kindness she ever did for him had a price tag attached. The realization must be hitting him like a physical blow. He has been a puppet, and the strings were just cut in the most public way possible. He stays in that room for a long time. The hall continues to empty until it is almost silent. Finally, the door opens. Caleb returns to the hall alone. He looks strained, his eyes red and his tuxedo jacket discarded somewhere in the other room. He walks straight to me and stands in front of me. He doesn't try to touch me this time. He just stands there, his hands at his sides. "I need to fix this," he says. His voice is firmer now, but there is still a tremor in it. I look at him, really look at him, for the first time today. I see the little boy his mother tried to keep forever, and I see the man who failed to grow up in time for his wedding. "Fix what exactly, Caleb?" I ask. My voice is steady, which surprises me. He starts to speak, his mouth opening to offer a promise, but then he stops. He realizes he doesn't have an answer. How do you fix a wedding where your mother wore white? How do you fix a husband who told you to be quiet? He can't answer. He just stands there, looking at me with a hollow expression. The guests who are left wait to see what I will do next. For the first time all day, I took the microphone. It feels heavy in my hand, like a scepter. I look out at the empty chairs and the few friends who stayed behind. I look at the camera that is still recording. "I didn't come here today to compete with anyone," I say. My voice vibrates through the room, strong and clear. "I didn't come here to fight for a seat or to prove I was the real lady of anything. I came here to be respected. I came here to start a life with someone I thought was my partner." I turn to look at the side room where Victoria is hiding. I know she can hear me. "Silence is not love," I continue. "And peace at the cost of your soul is not peace at all. It's just a slow death." The room is deathly silent. I feel a strange sense of peace washing over me. The humiliation is gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I am no longer the victim of this story. I am the narrator. I see Victoria's shadow through the frosted glass of the side room door. She is listening to every word. Richard nods at me for the first time. It isn't a nod of pity, it's a nod of respect. He sees that I have found my voice. Caleb looks torn. He looks like he wants to reach out to me, but he also looks like he's afraid I'll disappear if he touches me. In the side room, Victoria stops screaming. Maybe she realized that her noise doesn't have any power anymore. Maybe she realized that the more she screams, the more she proves Richard right. Something has shifted in the very foundation of this family. The control that Victoria spent decades building is simply gone. It didn't end with a fight, it ended with the truth. The wedding is officially paused, but we all know it's more than that. It's cancelled. There is no going back to the vows we almost took. There is no keeping the peace anymore. The war is over, and the casualties are everywhere. I look at the ring on my finger. It's a beautiful diamond, but it feels like a shackle. I realize that I am finally free to make a choice that is only for me. The guests are finally dismissed quietly by the venue staff. The music has been turned off, and the bright party lights have been dimmed to a soft, amber glow. The venue empties until it is just a vast, hollow space filled with expensive decorations that no longer mean anything. I sit down on a chair in the middle of the dance floor, still in my wedding dress. The white fabric pulls around me like a cloud. Caleb stands across from me, a few feet away. Neither of us moves. We are like two survivors of a shipwreck, washed up on a lonely shore. The silence is thick and uncomfortable. He looks at me, his eyes searching my face for a sign of forgiveness, but he finds nothing but exhaustion. He finally breaks the silence. "I choose you, Isabella," he says, his voice a whisper. "I choose you over her. I'll do whatever it takes. But I need time. I need time to figure out how to be the man you deserve." He is asking for a chance, but he is still asking for it on his terms. I look at the engagement ring on my finger. It catches the light, sparkling perfectly. It is a symbol of a promise that was broken before it was even fully made. I slowly reach down and slide the ring off my finger. It feels surprisingly light. I place it on the table next to me, the metal clicking against the wood. "I won't marry into silence, Caleb," I say softly. My voice doesn't shake. "I won't spend my life waiting for you to find your spine. I won't spend my life looking over my shoulder to see if your mother is wearing white." I stand up, the heavy dress rustling. "I love you, but I love myself more." I turn away from him and begin to walk out of the hall. There is no yelling. There is no chaos. There is just a sense of finality that settles over me like a blanket. I walk past the empty tables and the abandoned cake. Caleb doesn't follow me. He stays standing in the middle of the dance floor, alone in the dark. I walk out of the doors and into the cool night air. Weeks later, I heard the full truth of what happened after I walked out. Victoria is undergoing intense legal restrictions. Richard used the evidence in the folder to ensure she has no more control over the family assets or Caleb's life. She is living in a small house, far away from the Langley estate, stripped of her influence. Caleb has stepped away from her control completely. He is in therapy, trying to rebuild the person she tore down. And me? I am living in a small apartment by the city. I didn't lose a wedding that day. I lost a cage. I lost a life of being second best to a woman who didn't know how to let go. One evening, I receive a message from Caleb. I look at the screen and see his name. "You were right," the message reads. "Silence is not love. Thank you for leaving." I don't reply. I don't need to. I just close my phone and set it on the counter. I walk over to the window and look out at the lights of the city. I take a deep breath, and finally, for the first time in a year, I breathe freely.